Good morning, Azeroth. It is the 10th of April 2025. Grab your morning beverage and welcome to the stream. Today we'll be doing our weekly LFR runs, pushing up our rep in the galagio to earn some more of them rewards. Maybe we have a couple of cracks at the underpin as we go. Without further ado, let's get stuck in. Hope you're doing well today. You're almost through the week. Take it steady, keep yourselves hydrated. You've got this. Right, yesterday I completely forgot to go and open up my Great Vault and see if we got an upgrade. Get queued up these various parts of the liberation of Undermine. What we saw last time we did some LFR, it seemed as only 3 wings were giving me rep. But I did miss a week, so I don't know if there's any catch-up or all like that involved. Let's first have a look and see what we get. Hero gloves will be an upgrade. Breastplate is an upgrade, but we have a bit of tier set. That's a downgrade. I think we do gloves and then use the catalyst to turn them into tier set. Then we get our 4 set bonus. It should be a decent DPS increase. We just have to make sure we can upgrade them past that point of 658, which might be difficult. We'll see. Now the queues in prior weeks haven't been too long. We'll see how we get on.
I will do my duty.
Okay, that gets it to the same level.
Stay vigilant.
Chunky spike glove. Oh. Already. Hang on. Run to the catalyst. Oh, it's every 2 weeks, not every week. Okay, we're fine. Damn. Keep getting my timing off on the damn thing. Go by Tarib and Garib.
I have an extended supply of goods for our...
You deserve this devastation, the pair of you. Asking for null stones. I'll never get over it. I'll be forever salty about it. No, well, there goes the dream. Have any repopulated world quests in Undermine? We do not. But we have market research to gain. I believe the fastest way to grab that is through scrap piles as we go, but grab a dumpster. Singular research. Oh, rough business. But we're in. I say, if the queue times are kind, we'll go and have a bash at the underpin again. Yeah, we do. Now Quartermaster. Teleport within the place. It's fine. It's not for me on LFR. How many levels were there in total? 20. Assuming the rep doesn't go up loads every time. Should be something done by the end of the season. Make our way over. I did finally catch up again on the new Daredevil series. Which again, I've not been the biggest fan of a lot of MCU stuff of late. It's just, it's been too much, you know? I think that's pretty agreed upon by a lot of folks at this point. But I've been enjoying the show overall. I think episode 7, where we got the spoilers, of course, for those who haven't got to the point yet. where we were unmasking and dealing with Muse, felt probably the weakest episode. It felt kind of like a shame, like, oh, that was it. Like, since the start of the show, this new season at least, folks were really excited about Muse. I'd see a lot of article titles or forum posts where people are like, oh, they're actually doing Muse in a show. Ooh. So that, as someone who doesn't know the comics and had no idea going in what that meant, was eager to see. And then he was just kind of dealt with very unceremoniously. Got unmasked. They had a fight. I don't know, for all of the, not necessarily hype, but all of the excitement around that character, the show at the very least didn't make me see what the... What's the word? What all that excitement was for, basically. I don't know, I expected something a little more interesting. And maybe in the comics, he is. But such as it. Episode 8, though, was a lot better. We were getting a lot of tension, a lot of Matt just going through the ringer. The world kind of falls apart around him as he tries to go back into being Daredevil, and leading into that big ball at the end, you think, right, this could go any way. Whose machinations are in play? It seems as though Kingpin did not know Vanessa was up to something. If Matt's suspicions are to be believed. Bullseye wasn't working with him, and he gets out of prison, he takes the shot at the end towards Kingpin. You're thinking, I don't actually know who the target is. And then Matt, being the hero that he is, takes the shot, and he's just bleeding out at the end of the episode. He goes really well with what he was talking about with Bullseye in prison a few scenes prior. But it certainly left me very curious as to where we're going to end up. I don't see an episode where he's just been shot leading to the final one of the... Well, I mean, I need a bubble because I've been moving too much. Whoops! Getting to that point where the last episode of the season is going to be anything to write home about. I find it difficult to expect that, but otherwise it was solid. We're continuing through. The more exciting show, at least for me, I mentioned it a couple of times before, as an audio drama slash D&D actual play. I'm still moving too much. Oh no, we're half asleep. Called Worlds Beyond Number, which I highly recommend. It's on YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts. And I absolutely adore that kind of radio play with sound effects going, and a lot more emphasis on the storytelling than actual constant D&D mechanics. Don't get me wrong, I still love a lot of that. But it reminds me of my childhood and just growing up listening to audiobooks over and over again. Especially the dramatizations, you know, your Terry Pratchett's and that kind of thing. Tim Curry doing a series of unfortunate events, delightful. But Worlds Beyond Numbers got to a point now where they're starting to hit like an end game. Their first book, quote unquote, that's what they're calling them. When this one's done, they're going to swap to a sci-fi thing, but it was this big self-actualizing moment for a lot of the characters, like huge amounts of character growth coming to fruition in really interesting ways. I don't want to spoil too much, to be perfectly honest, because I highly recommend giving the show a listen. I'm garbage at this game. It was like an hour and a half of build-up, tension, release of these various character facets. And the audio design just really lets you get immersed into it. It's a really fun way to enjoy a D&D game and that style of story. I know there's a lot of them out there these days. This has kind of been like my first intro to that kind of thing. Really like it. Again, that's Worlds Beyond Number, and I highly recommend it. For those who know folks in the D&D space, that's Brennan Lee Murrigan, Lou Wilson, Abria Iyengar, and Erica Ishii, and they all do a fantastic job. A wizard, a witch, and a wild one. Okay. a spirit. It's like taking D&D's Fae, like a layer of the world as opposed to our own, but having a much more universal focus on it rather than it just being this quirky, dangerous thing constantly in the background. As the Feywild can be. Now, even a lot of stuff you can do with the Feywild. There's many interesting characters. There's all kinds of stuff within deeper lore of D&D that you can delve into, but it's a different approach, I'll say. A fascinating amount of world building. But I don't know if when they go to their sci-fi story next and then eventually come back to this one, how are they going to approach it? Will it be different characters? Will it be a time skip? We don't know. They've already done a time skip earlier on in the series. Like, it started with them as kids, but only the first episode of them as kids is kind of up on YouTube. The rest is like, that's part of a Patreon thing. But it serves as a decent intro into how they're getting on. Then you go straight into them being adults and going through some shit. Again, highly recommend it. Looked into a little bit more of the next patch coming out for WoW, by the way. The Nightfall campaign thing against the Nerubians. People seem to be reporting that there isn't actually going to be any story quests coming with that, which seems disappointing. Like, the Siren Isle, again, didn't really have much of a story to write home about, but I don't know, at least at the start it felt like there was a little bit of intrigue. Whereas it seems like this is very much going to be just a big activity to do. Push back the Sureki forces and now close out some loops with the remaining Nerubians before we get into ethereal goodness of 11.2. Which, to be fair, I'm very excited about. Ethereals have been a fancy mystery ever since they first appeared in the Burning Crusade. The prospects of learning more about them, maybe going to their home world, who can say? Certain as of yet. That seems the most likely outcome. So there was a theory where, like, oh, we're going to go into the Dark Heart because ethereals are made of energy, so Khadgar's going to teach us how to go in there, and I don't quite know how that would work out, but I bet it's a fun theory.
Uh-oh, looks like we got a party foul in the back.
Okay, it's the music boss. I have to be a little bit more aware with this one because of the mechanic where you have to bounce around some of these megaphone towers lest you be one-shot. I assume it's probably still pretty close to a one-shot, even with some of our gearing up. We're not actually going to get any upgrades of gear through LFR now. It's just to keep repping up the galagio. Which, without that, I don't think I'd be in here doing it, but the prospect of just gaining some rewards over time at least gives me a reason to play the mode. And it's certainly not a forced reason. I think over the years with WoW, that's been a really big problem. Where you feel like, oh, I have to be playing. I have to knock out these numbers every day, or I'm behind, whether that's through gear or progression or even story to some extent. Now it feels a lot more freeform, and gearing up is so quick these days. I think, as we've shown, just going through delves to be at the point where I'm wearing a mythic helmet and some of my other gear's getting there. Not that it's helped for our goal of defeating the Underpin. It really feels like that fight is all about getting the mechanics down. Zekfir was as well, to a degree, but gear certainly took the edge off Zekfir. Like, you could take a few more auto attacks. You could maybe survive one of the one-shots. Underpin, on the other hand, is just, I don't know, kick these footballs at these robots, at these mechs, and hope that you don't whiff it repeatedly. Ooh, that's a fancy-looking transmog. Not bad at all. Get him down. Don't stand in it. I love as the weeks go by in LFR and you start noticing everyone, like the amount of players who actually focus on the mechanics a little bit. Like, first week, you'd see people staying in those little circles, like, oh, it'll be fine, it's LFR, and get bodied. It's interesting to think back to when LFR was first introduced in Cataclysm. Especially because it was the final raid of Cataclysm, right? It wasn't the whole expansion, it was the whole Deathwing thing. Now, I remember the fourth fight in that was that big purple dragon. The Twilight Dragon, I believe, that Deathwing was kind of creating and building up. Halcyon, maybe? Something like that. But it was very much a DPS check of you have to... I just remember him floating at the top of Wormrest Tower. And if you didn't bring him down, the whole group would just take an absolute truckload of damage. And groups just wiping and wiping and wiping in LFR. Which again, really, almost novel at the time. As a way to, oh, I can actually play a raid. My guild aren't raiding. I can actually see some of this content. But it was a lot of everyone died. Spine of Deathwing. Oh boy. People getting flung off all over the place. You'll have 6 people left in the fight and you're just waiting. Will they give up and just throw it because it's going to take them forever, or are they going to stick with it and keep fighting? I don't think they've been as hard since. For LFR, at least. I don't remember over the years any LFR runs being quite so staggering. Mostly been wipes and there have been bosses that are harder than others, but I think the game itself and folks playing it, to be fair, have come a long way. I think Cataclysm was pretty infamous for general pugging things being more difficult. Like even the heroic dungeons. Bubble. I didn't make it in time, but we're alright. I'm a paladin. We can hit cheat button. But Cataclysm's heroics were, I think I mentioned before, really frustrating when it came to LFG and getting those random groups together, because people just didn't want to do mechanics. Especially to me, what seemed like simple mechanics. I think the big rock fella was a Rook, I believe. He basically had, don't stand near him when he does this circle, don't cast spells on him when he reflects, we'll all be fine. And the number of groups, even now, when we did Cataclysm Time Walking a few weeks back, that still get bodied by those very simple mechanics. I know, it always feels like people just kind of can't be arsed. They just want to rush through, DPS boss down, job done, but I don't know. I'd still like to see the new story mode have options to turn the difficulty up. Don't need better loot, I don't need better rewards, I just want to see some of the fancier mechanics. That shit's fun. There we go. Only one phase of it.
Finally, some quiet.
Transmog, transmog.
God would never shut up.
Greed,
You have my
greed,
best chance.
and greed. To the next. Have a swig of his beverage. Make sure you're all doing the same out there. Keep yourselves hydrated. Oh, goodness me. I've enjoyed that I can look at the renown just from in here, by the way. I think this has been here most of the expansion and I've just not realised it. Good morning, Emilis in the chat. Hope you slept well in the morning. Greet you kindly. How you doing today? Oh, and in again.
What now? We bought ourselves time. Now all we need is a...
Call it all cutthroats, mercs, firebugs, and psychopaths. Kill all these goblin cartels. That undermines yours to plunder.
I hope they actually stick to their guns and Gallywix is dead. He's been a fun villain, don't get me wrong, but he's been around so long. It was time. And obviously there was no more perfect time than the Undermine, the Goblin patch than to deal with him. But I swear to God, if this is a Kel'Thas situation, he's back again. Can you imagine for midnight, they just bring Kel'Thas back? Again. From Shadowlands. I mean, they're obviously going to bring Sylvanas back. That goes without saying, but I think she deserves and warrants it. But dear God, let's leave Kel'Thas back there. Finally leveling the priest. Gone disc as well. I wish you luck in your dungeon spam. It happens every time. They haven't seen the fight, they stand a little too close to the sun, and they get run over by a meat wagon.
Champions, take care of her while we check on our cartels.
Silly beggars. Oh, completely threw me off. That's happened every time so far. At least one person has been bodied by that vehicle. Right, for this one, we just need to wait for bikes to spawn as we're doing damage. Knock a goblin off a bike, ram it into the tank. Stop engineers from repairing it. Repeat until done. Embliss in the chat. I wish the dungeons were a bit harder because I'm just setting up my add-ons in the middle of a run. Yeah, it's... especially for leveling, you tend to thunder through them. So it's been a while for me, but even the last time I was leveling characters through dungeons, people want to move so fast and have the capability to move so fast, and the scaling is often all over the place, where like the fastest way to do damage is like a level 10 Fury Warrior, or level 11 or whatever it is. Just tanking. Which, it may be the fastest way to level, most efficient way to level, but you're not really getting to learn the game at any point. You're not really learning any of the mechanics. At least from what I remember of my time with Final Fantasy XIV, it wasn't like the dungeons were really difficult, but the pace was a lot slower. I felt like I had to at least study and somewhat learn the fights. Whereas in WoW these days, you just kind of, as I say, thunder through the dungeons. There's no Dungeon Plus mode for leveling. And I don't think heroics or slapping leveling dungeons somehow to scale a heroic tier in some way, shape or form would solve that problem, because even now, as I assume, so just for blasting through, grab your bit of gear, then get on into mythics if that's your game. I mean, mythic solves that problem a bit by existing. But I don't know, that a lot of that has just become player behavior these days, where people want to get through things so quickly. And I think no matter what Blizz do, at some point people are always going to try and just go fast, constantly, all the time. And there's only so much they can do there in the end. Honestly, I completely understand that, Emiliss. I got to a point in 14 where I was really enjoying it. I think that first expansion, Heaven's Wood, is absolutely amazing. For whatever reason, I really enjoy. Maybe it's just a draconic theme and fancy nights, but I really enjoyed my time with it. It's just I got to like the intro of not Shadowlands, Shadowbringers. There we go. Unfortunate naming for the two of those, and that's what a lot of people jumped to in saying, oh, this is better than WoW at the moment. That's where we're at. Obviously, the scale's tipped more evenly these days, but people absolutely adored that one. But I just kind of, I burnt out at that point. I'd been playing a lot. I'd gotten all the way up to that point. And honestly, the biggest barrier in going back is the login process. You need to log in with your Square Enix account, then your Moog Station account, then your other Moog Station account, whatever that is. It's a nightmare. And because it was like an authenticator on my old phone that broke, the prospect of even getting back into my account seems unlikely. But I did like my character. He was one of them big lion dudes. I liked the idea of just swapping classes. Yeah, you didn't have like the character diversity you'd have, say, in WoW on your own account, but just being the character that I liked and swapping around my class was pretty cool too. Although, obviously, the Paladin architect, I don't remember if it was called Paladin or not. You had to use shield and sword and was more often than not tanking, but it's a lot of fun. Because the story actually wanted you to go through dungeons and raids properly, and you actually had to engage with those mechanics, it meant each expansion storyline had those big capstone moments in a way that WoWs simply don't. You know, if you go back and do an old raid, you're doing it for transmog runs. You're rarely ever doing it at the intended level. You're not getting the story at that time. Well, I think WoW needs to do some kind of story mode where it puts the leveling experience, maybe a couple of the more important story dungeons, and a raid or some of a raid into some kind of scenario or instance. Remember this, last I heard it was a nightmare, but who knows these days. But given the streaming nature of what I'm doing these days, I am unlikely to find the time, but who knows, maybe WoW shits the bed again one day like Shadowlands did. Maybe it gets to that point. Because while we're doing, you know, menial tasks week to week at the moment, I'm really excited for all the future WoW has to hold. I'm happy to build up my collections, I'm happy to keep gearing, I'm happy to tackle some small challenges. I'm not hating myself for playing or anything like that. Hey, wherever you want to spend your money and wherever you want to enjoy your time, I'd do it. If you're not having fun on a game at the moment, jump over. And again, I think, I mentioned briefly yesterday, I think WoW and its devs are at the point where they're more than happy for you to go play other games. I think once a game starts becoming a chore, with so much live service bollocks these days, that I think more and more companies are realizing there's only so much time they can get from a single customer. And there are so many good games out, especially with all the free-to-play offerings and playing with friends, that you kind of have to have it be open a little more. If you want to create a treadmill, you only keep your most dedicated, and at some point, everyone else just burns out. And it sucks because it means you, especially if all the FOMO gets in your brain like it does me, it makes it really stressful. Even try and open up an older game. So it's like, oh, and here's all your dailies, and here's all your weeklies, and here's all the things you missed while you weren't playing. Yeah, this skin, no longer available. This earnable thing, no longer available. So they have to keep people in by any means necessary, and I'm glad WoW has very little of that. Especially these days. Shop mounts aside. I think that's a whole separate discussion, though.
Easy as pie.
Yeah, there we go.
Come on.
Someone give us beverage.
Wants a fight? We'll give Fire in the hole!
I know I say this every time I come into this casino, but it could be the... Oh, it's not Golden Globe. God damn it. The big casino in Final Fantasy. Golden Saucer. There we go. Golden Saucer. You could repurpose this whole raid to have WoW have its own kind of Golden Saucer. At some point. Whether they do or not remains to be seen, but I feel like it'd be a waste of the space if you didn't. It just felt like a lot of 14's options, and maybe this is, as a new player going in, that's the other thing to remember. Everything feels new and important. But I'm sure it very much has the portion of the player base in the same way WoW does, where it is gearing, it is endgame, everything else is pointless. And then you have all your avenues for collection. I think my biggest criticism playing 14 was, it's very hard after WoW's transmog system to look at another MMOs. And 14's glamour, while there's some cool looking outfits and there's fun stuff to earn, the way you actually glamoured your character, you had to use shards and you needed space for things, and it was a nightmare. I didn't quite get it. And that is a point of frustration I've heard from folks as well since and during who played the game. Obviously, the way the housing market works with player housing, first come, first serve, who has the most money, that kind of thing. Or is MLS? It's alright, no, nobody is being held here, you come and go as you please. It's alright, I will be nattering onto myself anyway. I think WoW's answering one of those with their approach to player housing, and again, WoW's transmog system just trumps that one. Easy, no contest. But I don't know if they sell like the items you need to create glamours or inventory space. I know their store's been... it's had criticism over the years. They sell a lot more than the WoW one does, but the WoW one's really starting to push it of late, which you hate to see. Especially with some very blatant greedy attempts that feel very purposeful. Rather than this is a cool cosmetic to be like, oh well, this gives you some in-game benefits in a way that doesn't feel great. I was saying, MLS, it's as much as I enjoyed my time with 14, it just can't stand up to WoW's transmog system, and that passion game, for me, and for many, is always the true end game in a game. One of the reasons I still nip at Monster Hunter Wilds on the weekends, because I need to craft all that armour, so I have all those fancy fashion options as time goes on. Mind you, they also made the misstep of not letting you do that for your weapons yet, so everyone has the same kind of endgame weapons look, which is these big sci-fi green blocky weapons. I mean, yeah, they're not nice at all. So I tend not to use them. But you see them everywhere. Which same in a lot of games. For Honor had a fantastic transmog system, for lack of a better term. You just use a bit of your in-game currency you earn up. You could pretty much, if you were playing regularly, you could pretty much look how you wanted from the gear you'd get. And every piece of gear you'd find to equip would become unlocked as something you could put on, transmog-wise. And it worked really well. So the more you played and leveled up a character, the fancier armor you'd get. Like your Warden was your standard medieval knight with a longsword, heavy plate armor. And you'd get more embellishments and more variety in your armor sets as you level them up. I always miss that game. I struggled to try and go back to it. It's a little daunting, being mostly a PvP game. But it holds a special place in my heart, does For Honor.
Something tells me this one.
But it's pretty much any game. Like Warframe was the same. Destiny was the same, though they had many an issue with their cosmetic systems over the years. Especially swapping to Destiny 2, where they gutted that system and have had to slowly rebuild it ever since. Space Marine 2 did a pretty solid job. There was a lot of cosmetics you could just earn through play, which is nice. More and more in the live service space, there were plenty of games that have come out where you didn't change a thing. I think if you remember BioWare's Anthem, when that first came out, when you started the game and when you ended the game, you looked the same. And that, especially in a game set up to be an RPG, just feels crap. Eventually they added some cosmetic stuff, but it was all on the shop. All of it was on the shop. I think eventually they made it earnable, but everyone stopped playing at that point. Yeah, give it a go, Emilis. See how you feel. Again, if you finish the base game, I think you'll probably really enjoy Heavensward. The base game was probably, again, as far as my memory serves, the slowest grind to get through. It also depends how much of the interim story between base game and expansion you did, because you have to go through each of those main story quest steps. And some of them are sillier than others, or more fetch questy than others. But I will say, the Heavensward story was really good. I for one, really enjoyed it. So if you get through to that point and just get into the swing of that story, I reckon you'll have a good time. Exactly, Emilis. I'm on the same page. Destiny 2 had so much going for it, and that kind of thing just absolutely ruined it for me. I think the other was FOMO for story content. Like the way they have their seasonal model set up, where they take out elements of the story that you've gone through as seasons go on, so it's no longer available. And I'm not just talking about the major expansions here, but even the little seasonal stuff. Like, when I last played that game, right, I remember going through some kind of time labyrinth and seeing the body of a character called Saint 14 and all the intriguing lore around him, because a lot of the lore in that game was really interesting. And thinking, oh, he went through time and saved us, but somehow a shotgun came through time. There was a lot of timey-wimey stuff, and it was just really interesting. And then I go on years later, dude's just in the tower, like, hello, I'm here now. And by the way, loads of story happens, and my boyfriend got kidnapped, and yeah. And it's like, what the fuck? Why? Why have you done this? I kind of get why they said they needed to rotate content. They kind of said it needed to happen for the game's infrastructure, but now it just feels like you built your game wrong, and the whole reason you jumped from Destiny 1 to 2 was to solve that problem. And you've created the same problem. But it's clear mismanagement is rife at that company, and the people at the top have made their money and don't give a shit. Like, the CEO firing people and showing them his massive car collection in the same day is wild. I'd say for base 14, as long as that remaining 30% was those important story beats, you're probably okay. There will be elements that kind of come up again later, and some recurring characters, but I think you'll be fine. 100%, Emilis. It's rampant in a way where it's never been this bad. We've never seen more layoffs. We've never seen more companies and studios closing. And it doesn't seem like it's going to end anytime soon. It's a real shame. I think the vast majority of folks who get into game dev do so because they play and love games. It is a passion more than anything else, especially when you look into, like, most fields within it, like programming or artists and all of that. You can do the same job and make more money in other industries. You go into games because it's what you love. For the vast majority of cases. Scoot's been standing around here for a while and the chat turned off. I cannot tell why. I thought we were just summoning someone, but oh well, we keep waiting, I suppose. But no, it's just been really a shame to see, and I think we're starting to see the live service bubble burst and that gold rush come down. All the NFT and crypto bollocks kind of got run into the ground as well, fortunately, so we're not at risk of a lot of that pushing its way in, but oh. I think Space Marine 2 is a fantastic example of it. It felt very 360 game era. It was a complete package. There was plenty to earn just through playing the game, both in the single player, through the PvE aspect of its multiplayer, and the PvP, which I really adored. I had a great time with its PvP. I wish it was a little more, a little bigger, like Space Marine 1's PvP was, but it's still really, really good. And they are still releasing updates, and yes, they do have some paid stuff. They have some microtransactions. Here's your chapter. They are adding Space Wolves soon. And if they haven't already, Salamanders. And those are my two favourites. So I'm like, ooh, I'm tempted. I haven't played it since we did all those launch streams of it. But absolutely fantastic game. And they've greenlit Space Marine 3. And they're still doing loads of support for Space Marine 2. It's all good shit. I do need to jump back on one weekend and have another blast at that. It was a good time. We don't know if they're going to do any story DLC. But if they do, I'll definitely be streaming that. Oh, a tank left. That's what's happening. One shine in its PvP? Was this being one-shot by, like, people with thunder hammers, or... Because I don't remember much one-shotting me. I remember having it. Maybe this is because, though, I was always mostly playing Bulwark and was just running at people with a shield. And then slicing them to bits. Oh, it was joyous. And I did, very briefly, pick the stealth character, but I hate snipers. But you eventually unlocked, like, a submachine gun. So you would stealth, go up behind someone, then just unload a full clip into someone. It just felt great. Eventually, people would clock on to the tactic and just be wary and waiting for that little invisible outline to appear nearby. It was a lot of fun. I dinked around with a lot of the classes, but Bulwark is just the way to go. Oh, the sticky grenade Vanguard. I think that got nerfed over time. I don't know where it's at these days. I haven't checked in for a while. But I remember Vanguards went from, oh, these are probably the strongest in the multiplayer to, actually, they might be the weakest. I don't know, as I say, I couldn't tell you where they're at the moment in the game. My only wish was that it was a little easier for the other PvE missions to be done solo. A lot of those mechanics weren't really built for that. Like, it was okay, but you definitely couldn't do any of the higher difficulties unless you really went for it. But it was really cool. I just didn't have a group, unfortunately. And I'm never a fan of randomly matchmaking into stuff like that these days. Don't have the patience for it. I think that's a great way to do it, Emily's. I think if you're not going to burn out if you enjoy a game and you're just, you know what, I'm having my one for the day. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to shoot some bugs, going to shoot some chaos. And it's not to say the game was perfect, but it focused on being a good video game. And that intention was clear. It was a lot of fun. I can imagine. It seemed like just praying for those executions to get some healing. While not getting bodied by some of the... Oh, what was it? I know there was one enemy that pissed me off in there. It might have been the Chaos fellas with the flamethrowers. The Siege boys. I will say, it wasn't quite as maddening as Bolt Gun. Bolt Gun proved to be quite difficult. I enjoyed it. I got through it. But it proved to be quite difficult. I think regular viewer of the channel, AJ, gifted me at some point Rogue Trader, which is their, like, CRPG, or those who don't know the old term, the Baldur's Gate style of 40k game, which at some point I'd be really eager to stream. At some point. We will see down the line. Remember, I liked fighting the heavies, though. They had some fun. They just kind of came at you, and they had some fun parry moments and dodging the swords. It has been a while, though. Maybe I'm with some rose-tinted glasses going on. And to be fair, I do miss the orcs from Space Marine 1. Just the Cockney slang kind of, we're gonna get them boys and we're in the war and bugger all these humies. I just love them. I just love them. Speaking of a love of audiobooks and that kind of thing, I should really, at some point, just get a chunk of those audiobooks. There's so many, though. There's so many Space Marine books. Oh, everybody dying. Yes, I'd agree with that. The bugs seemed a lot easier to deal with in Chaos. Absolutely. I couldn't say with some of like, there's a new one that's coming out recently. Another big bug. Maybe that turns the tables a bit. Nurgle Marines, you say? Is this as armor for players in PvP? Or is this Nurgle boys are coming as foes? Great grandfather Nurgle. And all that pestilent joy. Bless it. Terminator armor would be pretty cool. I can't see that being balanced in PvP. But for the PvE, sure. It's been a long, long time since I dinked around with any miniatures, but around the time Dawn of War 2 came out, like when I first got a gaming PC, and that was like the first game I had to test it next to Batman Arkham Asylum, which came with a graphics card. I'd only ever done like Fantasy Warhammer before that point. A little bit of Lizard Men because they looked cool next to Lord of the Rings, because of course I did Lord of the Rings. And I loved getting Space Wolves. I loved, especially with the edition at the time, how modular a lot of the pieces were and how you could really craft dudes that looked unique on the tabletop. I never played the game really, but putting models together and painting them, I got these free like Forge World giant werewolves, slapped bits of Space Wolf armor on and said, yeah, Wolven aren't a thing in this edition, but I've got free giant wolf dudes with Space Marine armor. It's great. But it's a very expensive hobby. And you need the space to set them up. As we were all stuck with COVID, I thought I'd get back into it, and I got a few bits and bobs, and then it was like, oh, this edition really discourages putting things together uniquely. The rules kind of limit what you can, at least for the Space Wolves that I was building, it limits what you can put on them, so I can't go as crazy with my weapons and armor, and at least officially, right? And then they actually released the box of the werewolf dudes, the Wolven, which they were the whole Werewolf London thing. It's more dude than wolf, which is not my favourite, but I was like, cool. And then it said, right, for a full fieldable squad, you need 6. How much did a box that cost like 35 to 40 quid cost? It had 5 of them, and I was livid. I'm like, right, you money-grubbing bastards. And they made so much money over COVID. But that was just kind of it for me. I'm like, well, bugger you. We have become too money-grubby. Maybe it's better these days, but not right now. My brother's boyfriend loves his Warhammer. He 3D prints a lot of his own stuff. He says, yeah, it's way cheaper. You just 3D print it all. Job done. I'll play the game sometime. Hasn't come about yet, but I look forward to it. And you think foes but might be spreading misinformation. How could you do this? No, it's fine. I'll keep an eye. I'll be very curious to see. And I think that's the case for just about anyone. Like, at the time, I had a bit more disposable income, and even then it was like, I don't know. I guess I'm not going out anywhere this month. But the act of sitting and painting and putting them together was really cathartic. I do miss that. And to be fair, I have piles of unpainted minis in a box in the wall that maybe one day I go back to. Even those prior mentioned giant werewolves were never fully painted.
Nobody passes without permission.
I wonder if the paints are still usable. The glue probably isn't to fix, assumably, all the breakers that have happened in there. Was searching for fashion, came across Nurgle. Oh no. What has happened? It's alright, remains to be seen. And if they do more story content, I look forward to streaming it again. Otherwise, maybe on the weekend on occasion, I will get to jump back in, but there's limited time. And to be fair, a lot of these weekends I've gotten to the point of I'm playing games on stream all week. I kind of want to breathe. But to be fair, with the release of something like Monster Hunter, I enjoy just very casually hunting in there. May I add. I'm glad you're enjoying the Disc Priest. See how you're feeling 40 levels of time. That's a good start, it sounds like. Everybody stack. Stack, don't avoid it. This is a stack one, goddammit. That mechanic's been in WoW for a while now, and people still don't get it. Needs to be a very clear tutorial that explains that to people. Or something, because for whatever reason, it's just kind of ignored. He shoot. Tank should move him over. There we go. Okay, now we just got to watch for that little rock wall he summons. It got us killed last time because not enough people went in and the rock elemental just beat everyone to death. There we go. There we go, much better. I like this fight. I like fights that are big, flashy, and put crap everywhere on the map. Got a lot of personality being half shaman, half mob boss. Or half shaman, half gangster, half mob boss. I'm not sure. Ads. Oh, mind the gun. Okay, we're good. It didn't carry going. Somebody died. Let's give him a combat res. Oh, they died outside the arena. That's fine. I'll help them. It's not wild for me. I seem to have 7 combat reses. I'm beginning to think it is shared through the whole group. It's the only explanation as to why you can have so many. And listen in the chat. Most of my deaths in this raid are from being run over. Oh no! That seems to track though, to be fair. There's a lot of that. I think I've managed to get away unscathed thus far, but also LFR doesn't leave you on the roads quite as much. You have my sympathies. How many times did that meat tank we fought earlier get you? Or is it the other cars on the other roads and the motorbikes? Oh, I forgot to stack. Damn, that was dumb. Oh, turned it to me! Why would you do this? So much molten gold.
This one's just for you. Say hello to my
Nope, I'm bubbling. Nope, sod that. Down you go, Mugsy.
pleasure working with you.
Lovely.
See ya in the next life, pal.
What's next, guys?
I like the idea of these things having Gallitech limited edition on them, but it doesn't seem to do
You
much.
wanna host me? Keep going. I'll see you soon enough.
We will never... The transmog button will never give me a piece of loot. It never has. It never will. Got 2 more to go. Gallywix himself. How's this work? Doesn't work. I only have a different teleporter. Garbage. If I try and take my bio break now, that queue's gonna pop. That's how it always happens. Every time. Patience. Oh, hey, Madame Gal. I keep forgetting you're here in Undermine. There we go. Oh, we've joined halfway through. That's fine. Everyone's skipping the... Over the weeks, everyone found out, oh, we avoid most of the ads by going this way. Even though people get confused and get lost and we end up pulling a lot of ads anyway.
I'm out of range.
Yeah, they just pulled the big slime boy anyway. Oh, dear. If anyone goes down, they're just going to leave rather than try and walk back themselves. Look at how many are coming! It's always a mistake. And that big one's about to get involved. Fools. Absolute fools! Oh no, I'm stuck. Everybody going down. Somebody pulled another pack. Death comes. Somebody bloodlusted, like, nope, not all dying here. About keep myself alive. Healing potion. Someone went and pulled the boss. Okay. What is this shit show? It's a massacre. Nobody's getting out alive. Kind of fun though. Kind of fun, it just being a mess. Oh, for whatever reason, that gave me galagio loyalty points. Huh. I'll take it. I suppose it depends why you'd want to be doing it, Emilis. Like, if you want to do it just for some gear, I don't think it's like a necessary way to gear these days. I think it's a lot easier just to start doing some delves. I find it more fun, to be honest. But It depends if you want any of the rewards from that renown track either. That's kind of why I'm doing it. But at the same time, my priest! No, to be fair, there is my priest.
I got research to develop. If this is
The other tank isn't here, you fools. The catch-up gearing's pretty good these days as well. I imagine getting your priest up to max level and then gearing him up would be way less arduous than you think. That's 616. I think you'll be able to push into tier 8. Maybe it's just the paladin in me giving me a bit of an easier time. But I take Bran on healer, and I think one of the streams might be, they're all in the playlist. But if you go back and check one where I've got in the title tier 8 delves or getting into them, you might be able to see what item level I was. But I was always like 8 to 12 levels under the tier I was starting, I think, especially with tier 8. But yeah, as a Blood Death Knight, it will be. It's probably going to be really easy. Especially with Bran's potions as well. And I am on Khadgar the vast majority of the time in the EU. Again, I do have the in-game chat and stuff turned off at the moment, so bear that in mind.
Let's try a little experiment.
And the magnet.
If this is rewired, it'll up the kill rate 20%. I call this the green noise.
No, fair enough, fair enough. There is more. Not more. There are less barriers between realms than there's ever been, as long as there's not. I was too close to the edge. Shit. I forgot that he ledges people. I completely forgot.
How hot does flesh get before it sizzles?
But as long as there's not a regional gap, like between the US and the EU, for example, it's easier than ever to play with folks, even cross-faction, which is nice. I see the combat res is going, what about me?
Here's to a stash.
Oh, the other one's a healer, that's understandable, but the healer isn't getting up. And they have said, as much as they'd like to have
Check out the big bang.
the EU and the US servers work together, there's so much underlying tech and crap that would have to change, it's probably impossible.
I call this the green noise.
Thank you. Whoever picked me up, that was very kind.
If this is rewired, it'll up the kill rate 20%. How's into my success? Let's try a little experiment.
Yeah, you can cross guild together now, it's good shit. Just let people play with people, you know. It's a good time. I know people get like, oh, but it's Horde and Alliance and that's a really important thing, and I'm like, you can still have both. There's no need to create barriers with your friends anymore. Let people play who they want to play with. If you want to role play it, feel free, you know?
Great work, champs. Now, go clean yourselves up before moving on, okay?
Transmog, transmog, transmog. Read. And all that remains for the day will be Galliwix himself. It's actually taken a little longer than last time, to be fair. Oh, and I do remember, we had a plumber come round yesterday who was tearing up floorboards and trying to figure out why there was a lot of pressure problems across the house. So I actually have to run around, check some valves, bleed some radiators, and I completely forgot this morning because it's now a new daily task. Ooh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Unclaimed black market. I remember you could get some really good shit in those. Oh, it's legs, not cape. There. Then a gigantic scarab shield, but these prices though. It's most of my in-game gold.
Keep your eyes and heart.
Just from questing and doing stuff, we've got a reasonable amount of wild gold these days, but I think I'd still be considered pretty wild poor compared to a lot of folks. I just never spent the time making gold. We have a lot of stuff in the war bank that we could sell, but I still at one point want to do all that profession work. Let's have a drive around as we wait. Maybe catch some bins. Touch more market research. Which am I on? 40, and I need one more box, and then in theory, I could do the proper farm where we just sit at the top by the docks and kill things endlessly for 9 hours. Exactly, a real-life daily quest. Absolute bloody nightmare. I suppose with the WoW token now, you can just buy gold in a safe way. As controversial as it may be, it is a way to do so. But to be honest, I've just never cared that much. I don't spend my in-game gold that often these days. So I don't mind, There are some catch-up mechanics for the profession things, it takes so long to level them. Like, I went to a point where we've got a max level character for pretty much every single profession. Just because I want to unlock all these different transmogs, because there's some really cool stuff in here. But the act of leveling them up to get all of these different things, like, if you want to just unlock stuff, you can't make them at a really high level where you get the best stats from them. And you really have to focus on it. I think if you've got 1 or 2 characters and you really hone in on it, it's probably okay. But if you're like me and you're just casting a gigantic wide net, because I think, you know, one day, player housing, it's going to involve professions. I'm going to need to be crafting all of the things. I'm going to need to be making tables and chairs and curtains and armor racks and all the possibilities. So just having the option to do so on multiple characters. But then for the current content, it's like, I want some of this transmog. But there's soulbound stuff still involved. It's a lot easier, I will say, since the warband changes. The fact that every bit of profession stuff in the warbank can be just picked out by anyone without having to go and actually pick it up. Like, anything you craft, if you weren't aware, you probably are. But anything that's in your warband bank, you can just use for crafting. In terms of you don't actually have to go and get it out. It works. You can just craft. Fantastic. Helped a lot in that regard. In Dragonflight, there was this constant mailing of mats between my characters and just being like, oh, this takes so long and I have to do a crafting order for myself to get mats over there and oh, it's a nightmare. Whereas now, it's super easy. You still have to kind of do the crafting orders for yourself for some very specific soulbound stuff. If you want that on another character, but for the most part, it's alright. For the most part. I still don't think it's a perfect system. I still think it's a little overly complex. Well, not complex is the wrong word. I think when you boil it down, it's alright. I think it's obtuse. You haven't done a single profession since you started. Well, let me tell you the joys of right-clicking on an orb and just doing a bit of mining. It's very cathartic, I find. Maybe that's because I do that in just about every video game where I can mine. I will go and do some mining. Otherwise, the professions are in a decent spot. It's just learning. With how it's set up these days, you don't have to say start and then do like classic and then Burning Crusade and then Wrath professions. You don't have to do all that. There are some old stuff, like an old transmogs you might want to go and get. But other than that, you learn the base version of the crafting of the profession you want to do. Generally good to have a gathering one and one of the associated crafting ones. Although a lot of my characters are just double gatherers. Especially if you want to make some money reasonably quickly. But you just pick up you go by any trainer, which are in most cities. I'd go to Dornagol. Because then you can learn the base version, then you learn the War Within ones and start leveling it up. You get that base to level 25. Then that unlocks the weekly quests in Dornagol that help you keep bumping up your profession level. And then when you hit level 50, you start unlocking the specializations and the points within. Archaeology was a really cool secondary profession. It's a little fiddly, just because you hit button, kind of follow that compass around, hit button, try and angle it back in the other direction, but has something to do when you've got something you're watching on another screen, like, you know, you're catching up a TV show or a film, or just relaxing. Archaeology had some really cool stuff. There was some fancy mounts, there was... At the time, it wasn't transmogs. I don't think you could transmog whites back then, but there might actually, or greys even, there might actually be some cool transmog options in there. I did it for a good while on my orc character and really enjoyed it. They know they want to rework archaeology at some point. It's just been on the back burner for them for a good while. So I'd bear that in mind. But there is some fancy stuff in there. I'd have a good look through. Unless you want it all to be a surprise, I would have a look through some of the rewards. Just to make sure, right, is this worth the time investment if at some point they're going to change it? I assume when they do change it, they'll keep a load of the old rewards. Feel pretty bad if they just deleted them all. But it was still a lot of fun. Fishing on occasion in this game's alright. It's pretty standard. Bob your bobble out, wait for it to waggle, get fish. But ever since the fishing derby screwed me when I was streaming on a Saturday at one point, never again. Goddamn fishing derby. Gives me an hour, and then the quest is cancelled for the full week, and you get nothing. The game said, you get nothing. I'd be mad. Hey, Teddy. Hope you're doing well today, bub. Welcome back to the stream. You're catching us at the tail end here. But you've been doing well, bub. I think especially with how professions are going to tie into player housing, we don't know the details yet. They have teased that they will talk about it. At least get your foot in the door. Have a look at what what's the word? Why is he exploding so much? We're taking so much damage. I think a mechanic was ignored here. Judging by that. Yep, everybody go down. Everybody go down. I think that control rod had to be dealt with. And nobody did. Sadness. But we get 5% damage, health, and healing. Dear oh dear. But yeah, I'd consider something like, if when player housing comes out you want to make curtains, or something to cover a sofa or a blanket, maybe tailoring's the way to go. I know my blacksmithing will come into that. I'll want to make armor racks. I want to be putting displays on walls. Skinning and leatherworking probably is for like beast heads and stuff like that. And did someone just do that to me? God damn it. More fun to do it again, they know. The bridge not spawn? What was that? I feel robbed. Player housing, I want to tunnel under. Oh, we're going to start building a whole Minecraft den underneath. A whole cave system and network. I imagine that would be something they could add down the line. I don't think it'd be a launch thing, but get your own Niffin or Kobold friend or Nerubian friend and start digging. Create your own tunnel network. I don't know, maybe. It's a fun idea. I think there was a lot of debate about, and certainly it's something I felt, I kind of always wanted a house in Stormwind. You know, I wanted that to be the thing. But the more they've gone into it, right, setting it out in an instanced area in the world, for the specific purpose of building up a neighborhood and building up a sense of community, I think it's really interesting. I'm eager to see how it goes. It's going to depend on how much you have to interact with those aspects socially. I think over time, they could get to the point of doing cities. And I reckon for Midnight, Silvermoon is probably going to have a district like that for player housing. I reckon you don't spend all that time rebuilding that city. You don't spend all that time talking about it in the lore, in some novels, emphasizing, oh look, they're rebuilding this city. There are new buildings available, if you weren't going to do something like that. Fake Goblin City because no neutral auction house. Very silly. But I think you're right, Emilis. I think there will be both at some point. We know player housing is going to get its own roadmap. It's going to have its own focus. Assumably, members of the dev team are just going to be focused solely on that. Because there is one of those gigantic systems within an MMO that can keep player attention all on its own. Like, you see that with Final Fantasy itself. People play that game just for what they can do in the housing. Imagine players being taxed by the various NPCs. Want to live in Stormwind? You best be paying some of them fees. Undermine would be the worst for it. I mean, maybe it's better under Gazlowe now. Maybe we'd be fine. I think Booty Bay would be a pretty good place, to be honest. Maybe now that we've befriended Revelgaz more through all this stuff in Undermine, maybe we'd get lucky and the prices would be fine. No, the neutral auction house used to have all kinds of random stuff in it. And there was also those moments of people who were trying to sell something to themselves. Like, they'd do it on one character, log over, because that was the only way you couldn't transfer or mail yourself characters cross-faction back then, in the earlier days. So you'd get, I mean, I did this a couple times myself, where you'd want to send a specific item, or maybe profession mats, to your opposing faction character. And you had to get them both to a neutral auction house, log in on one, set up the auction. You didn't want to do it, especially if you're poor in WoW like me. You couldn't put it to be too expensive because you couldn't afford it. So you had to put it up, log out quick as you can, log back in on the other character and hope someone hadn't bought it in the meantime. And occasionally, there were people waiting for that kind of thing. There were people just hoping it would catch someone out, so you had to pick your time quite carefully. Oh, silly. Nowadays, you just mail your alt those things. Thank goodness. Bloody nightmare. Amusing, but nightmare. I thought they only added the dwarven, like, not heritage armor. Like, I'm sure they added the dwarven guard armor at some point more recently. Where? Mind all of the fire. I will not get ledged again today. Oh. I will get bodied by something though. Oh, so very kind. So very kind. Sorry, I garbage. A bigger bada boob. Ah, I see, Teddy, I see. And I'm always learning with you stuff popping in. Always learning. I suppose such a thing nowadays will also be just because there's so many less barriers between the factions. Unique crafting recipes be a thing of the past in that regard. Obviously, you still have to... There are still faction-bound weapons and transmogs and different armors. But usually when they put one in, they do one for the other faction as well. We saw that with the, like, Echoes of Azeroth, Dalaran stuff pre-event before the War Within. And there were some really good transmogs options there. I hope they're still in the game somewhere. Oh, congratulations, Emily. Fast pace. You have to keep it going. You'll be at 80 in no time.
Learn your lesson. Things just got a little more complicated.
Still a long-ass time. Teddy, still a long-ass time. It just took a long time to do goddamn anything in vanilla. Hey, there we go. It took a long time. Honestly, I know a lot of people love Classic. I do not miss leveling taking so bloody long. I wish things were a little more challenging. I wish the story was a little more completable in your leveling experience. You know, I want to be able to, when I pick an alt and I want to do an expansion, I want to have a story. You know, I want that to be an experience, especially for newer players. But it's just not there at the moment. Maybe that's something they can fix one day. We know it's something they've thought about many a time. But I would rather it be fast. Those two statements contradict each other. It's very confusing. Something cannot be more than 4 years and then less than 3 at the same time. You have to pick one or the other. I remember it taking me a really long time. And mainly just because when I first started, I played a hunter. Did not use a ranged weapon. Did not feed my pet properly. And did not teach it taunt. So it was a bit of a nightmare once I discovered all these things existed. And then it was Paladin time, and we've been Paladin ever since. Suppose I have that reward card now. Okay, we've got a little bit for the war bank, so we'll nip on back to Dornagol, get ourselves set up for tomorrow's delves. Try and gear up a bit. What time are we looking at? We're alright. The radiators can... I do need to get moving. Should have done it an hour ago, but this should be fine. The house hasn't blown up, so I think we're alright. They nip to the war bank. Nyom.
My directive is to serve you.
Get that bismuth in there. Get that armor in there. At some point, I will use it all on my alts. Or just disenchant a lot of it, but we'll see. It'll be fine. How annoying would doing the War Within story on a healing spec be? It'd take a bit longer, but I don't think it'd be as horrendous as you think. You can always swap spec, and I will say the starter builds these days, at least for what I was doing in Pandaria Remix, they fit the build quite well. They actually do help out quite a lot. If you find that going through on a healer is too slow, well, I'd give it a bit of a go. You never know. You might be alright. But again, if needs be, those starter builds, if you needed to go DPS and Shadow, are pretty solid. But, again, I don't think it'll be too bad. Might be a little slower, but I don't think it'll be too bad. But I will say, folks, with that today, thank you very much for watching. Thanks to those who've come and joined me live and hung out, and to everyone else who'll watch later. Subscribe for more content here on the channel. You'll find me here on the weekdays at 9 AM GMT with World of Warcraft, and between 4 and 6 in the evenings, we will start up on other games. We have a couple more streams left of Wonderstop as we continue to make tea, and then I think we'll be getting into Avowed next. The old Sibian RPG I've been waiting to sink my teeth into. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoy yourselves, help push it through the algorithm so more folks can come hang out, play some games with us. We've also got playlists for all the games we've already covered right here on the channel to binge to your heart's content. So until next time, folks, much love, take care, and bye-bye.
So I have this idea for a great movie. It's about two gnomes who find a bracelet of power, and they have to take it to the burning steps and cast it into the cauldron. They form the Brotherhood of the Bracelet. Along the way, they're trailed by a murloc named Gotham, who's obsessed with the bracelet, and 9 bracelet boogeymen. It could be a 3-parter called Ruler of the Bracelet. The first part would be called The Brotherhood of the Bracelet, followed by a couple of towers, with a climactic ending called Hey,